Have you ever wondered how our world has come to be so culturally diverse? How did people end up where they are today? Our journey begins thousands of years ago, as early humans ventured out of Africa, spreading across the globe. This great migration was driven by a quest for survival, as our ancestors sought out abundant resources and hospitable climates. But this was just the beginning of a story that would span millennia. Fast forward to the colonial era. A different kind of migration was taking place. Europeans were setting sail to the New World, driven by a thirst for wealth, power, and religious freedom. This period witnessed large-scale displacement of indigenous populations, a darker side of migration that we must not forget. Let's move on to a more recent past, to the tumultuous times of the first half of the 20th century. The world wars provoked unprecedented movements of people. Millions were displaced by the ravages of war, fleeing their homes in search of safety. In the aftermath, many were forced to migrate again, as borders were redrawn and nations were rebuilt. And then, there was the post-war period. The world was reshaping itself and people were on the move again. This time they were drawn by the allure of economic opportunities in booming cities and prosperous nations. This wave of migration driven by hope and ambition has helped shape the world as we know it today. Migration is not a static phenomenon, it is a dynamic process that continues to evolve, influenced by a complex interplay of political, economic, social, and environmental factors. It has been a constant thread in the tapestry of human history, contributing to the rich diversity of cultures and societies we see today. As we can see, migration is a deeply ingrained part of human history, shaping countries, cultures, and societies. It is a story of movement, transformation, and resilience. A story that is still being written even today. We invite you to join us as we delve deeper into this fascinating topic in the coming scenes. But what happens when people are forced to leave their homes, not by choice but by necessity? This is a question that we must grapple with as we delve into the concept of forced displacement. Forced displacement refers to situations where individuals or groups are compelled to flee or leave their homes due to factors beyond their control. This could be as a result of conflict, persecution, or environmental disasters. It's a harsh reality that has been a part of human history for centuries, but it has become increasingly prevalent in the 20th and 21st centuries. Let's consider conflict, one of the major drivers of forced displacement. When war or violence breaks out, it can make living conditions unbearable, forcing people to seek safety elsewhere. The Syrian civil war, for example, has led to one of the largest refugee crises in recent history, with millions of people displaced both internally and across borders. Persecution, on the other hand, can be based on religion, race, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. The Rohingya crisis in Myanmar is a stark reminder of how persecution can lead to mass displacement, with hundreds of thousands of Rohingyas forced to flee to neighboring Bangladesh. Environmental disasters, too, play a significant role in forced displacement. Natural calamities such as hurricanes, earthquakes, or droughts can render areas uninhabitable, pushing people to relocate. Climate change is exacerbating this issue, with rising sea levels and extreme weather events threatening to displace millions more in the coming decades. From the partition of India and Pakistan in the mid-20th century, the displacement of Palestinians during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, to the more recent mass exoduses from Syria, Yemen, and Venezuela, the history of forced displacement is as varied as it is heartbreaking. Forced displacement is a stark reality of our times, presenting a humanitarian challenge that the world must address. It's a complex issue, rooted in geopolitical, socioeconomic, and environmental factors, and it requires a comprehensive and compassionate response from the international community. So, what happens to those who are forcibly displaced? Where do they go? These are questions that often come to mind when we talk about forced displacement. The answer, in many cases, is that they become refugees. As we speak, there are millions of people around the world living in this state of limbo, caught between a home they can't return to, and a world that's not quite ready to fully embrace them. The journey of a refugee is no small feat. It's fraught with peril, uncertainty, and a great deal of human suffering. Often people are forced to leave everything behind, embarking on treacherous journeys across land and sea in the hope of finding safety. They travel in overcrowded boats, on foot through desolate terrains, and sometimes hidden in the back of trucks, all in the desperate pursuit of sanctuary. And what awaits them at the end of these perilous journeys? In many cases, it's not the promised land of peace and prosperity, but sprawling refugee camps where conditions are far from ideal. These camps, meant to be temporary solutions, often become semi-permanent homes where basic needs like clean water, food, and healthcare are in short supply. Yet, amidst the grim reality, there are glimmers of hope. International organizations like the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees work tirelessly to manage these crises, providing aid, advocating for refugee rights, and working with governments and communities to find durable solutions. However, the scale of the crisis is so vast, it's not something that can be solved by these organizations alone. It requires a global effort, a collective will to acknowledge and address the root causes of forced displacement, and a commitment to creating a world where no one is forced to flee their home. The refugee crisis is a testament to human resilience in the face of adversity, but it's also a call to action for global solidarity. It compels us to look beyond borders and politics, and see the shared humanity that binds us all. Because at the end of the day, a refugee is not just a statistic. They are a human being, just like you and me, in search of a place to call home. How do nations respond to the influx of migrants and refugees? What laws and policies do they have in place? The world is a vast tapestry of nations, each with its own unique set of immigration policies. These policies serve as a framework on how a country accepts, integrates, or rejects migrants and refugees. Take a look at Australia, for instance. They've adopted a point-based system which favors immigrants with skills that are in high demand. This system aims to bolster their workforce and economy, but it has been criticized for being too selective, potentially overlooking the human rights of asylum seekers. On the other hand, Germany has implemented a more humanitarian approach. In response to the Syrian refugee crisis, they opened their borders, accepting over 1 million refugees since 2015. This policy, however, has stirred internal debates about national identity and resource allocation. Then there's the United States, a country built on immigration. It has a complex system that includes family-based immigration, employment-based immigration, and a diversity visa lottery. Yet its policies have been under scrutiny due to controversial practices like family separations at the border. And let's not forget about the smaller countries like Lebanon and Jordan, which despite their limited resources host a disproportionate number of refugees. Their policies are often dictated by necessity rather than choice. Moreover, these immigration policies can have profound impacts on migrants and refugees. They shape their journeys, determine their legal status, and influence their opportunities for integration. Policies can offer hope, but they can also create barriers, amplifying the challenges that these individuals already face. But it's crucial to remember that immigration policies are not static. They evolve, influenced by political climate, public opinion, and international pressures. They are a delicate balance between national interests and global responsibilities. So as we continue to navigate this complex issue, let's bear in mind one final thought. Immigration policies are a reflection of a nation's stance on diversity, human rights, and international cooperation. In a world that's more connected than ever, why are borders becoming a point of contention? That's the question at the heart of today's border security debates. These discussions are not simply about lines on a map. They touch on deeper questions about national identity, economic stability, and the balance between security and freedom. On one side of the debate, we find advocates for stricter border controls. They argue that such measures are necessary to maintain national security, protect jobs, and preserve cultural integrity. National security, they say, hinges on the ability to control who enters a country, and under what conditions. They express concerns about the potential for crime, terrorism, and other security threats that might be associated with unchecked migration. Economic arguments for stricter borders often revolve around protecting domestic jobs and wages. The fear is that an influx of low-skilled labor could depress wages and increase competition for jobs. And then there's the question of national identity and cultural integrity. Some argue that large-scale migration can lead to cultural dilution and societal tension, undermining a sense of national unity and shared values. But the debate doesn't end there. Opponents of stricter border controls point to the human rights of migrants and refugees. They argue that everyone has the right to seek a safe, fulfilling life, free from persecution, violence, and economic hardship. Moreover, they assert that immigration can bring economic, social, and cultural benefits. Immigrants, they say, contribute to economic growth, diversity, and innovation. They help fill labor shortages, pay taxes, and bring new ideas and perspectives. And let's not forget our international obligations. Many countries have signed treaties promising to protect refugees and respect human rights. Stricter border controls, some argue, could undermine these commitments. In the end, the debate over border security is a complex one, balancing national security with human rights and international obligations. It's a conversation that will continue to evolve as we grapple with the realities of a world on the move. So, where do we go from here? What does the future hold for migration? As we close this journey, let's remember the critical issues we've traversed. Forced displacement, the refugee crises, immigration policies, and border security debates. These challenges call for innovative solutions, compassionate policies, and global cooperation. We need to create a world where migration is a choice, not a necessity. While the challenges are immense, so too are the opportunities for positive change. The future of migration rests on our collective actions and decisions.